Yes, I believe, as you know, my name is Henley. I am currently living in Dallas, Fort Worth. I work in a school district called Keller ISD at Timber Creek High School. This is my family that obviously lives there with me. My wife, Jessica, we've been married for 7 years. I got started a little bit late in life as far as the marriage thing goes, but we've been married for the last 7 years, best 7 years of my life. And 4 years ago, right as COVID started, we had our son Reese. And so Reese is 4 years old. He's currently driving my wife nuts. I've been talking to them all day on the phone, trying to make sure that he understands that I'm only gone for a couple days, and he gets to see me when I get back. I am finishing up my 20th year in coaching and teaching. In Texas, you are required to teach as well as coach. So I have taught in high schools my entire career. I teach science, and I'm also certified in PE. I have been at Timber Creek for the last 11 years. During that time, I have served as an offensive varsity position coach. I have served as a special teams coordinator for the last 4 years, as well as the associate head coach at that school. And Timber Creek High School, just for reference, has about 3,100 students. We have 250 football players currently. That is the largest school that I've worked at in my career. I've also worked at schools that have 40 kids on the football team. I've worked at schools that have 100 kids on the football team. I've pretty much run the entire gambit as far as school size and how we do things at different school sizes. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I graduated from El Dorado High School, where I played football and baseball, and also was in the Marine Corps Junior ROTC there. That actually led me to attend Texas A&M University on an ROTC scholarship. I had every intention of going into the military, but I'm old enough that they didn't let people in with asthma back when I was looking to join. So I got to my junior year when I had to go through MEPS. They told me, well, sorry, you don't qualify to actually go into the military. So I had to kind of pivot and look for a different career choice. And it was at that point that I chose to become a teacher. And my mom is a teacher. My mom is a principal in New Mexico. She has been doing education for the last 40 years of her life. So it's kind of something that is ingrained into our family. As far as coaching, just some relevant coaching highlights. I've touched on some of these already, but I have coached football for 19 years. 14 of those years is on the defensive side of the ball for the most part. 5 of those years as an offensive coach. I have served as defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, etc. I talked about some of that already. Over my 19 years, the teams that I've coached have been in the playoffs 16 times in the state of Texas. Those playoffs are, we have 6 classifications in Texas right now. We go 1A through 6A. Timber Creek is in the 6A classification, the largest in the state. I have also coached a lot of other sports in my career. Most coaches in Texas coach multiple sports. I have been a head baseball coach also. I am also currently this year I'm the head boys wrestling coach at Timber Creek High School. I was the assistant coach before that, and I have also coached basketball and track, and probably something else that I'm forgetting about. But I've coached a lot of different sports in my career. Coaching and teaching is really my calling. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that when I wasn't able to go into the Marine Corps, that I was being told that there was a different path to my life, and I have been extraordinarily happy with my choice ever since. I'm really looking forward to providing a positive daily impact for anybody that I come in contact with. That's what I want to do. I want to teach kids how to be successful adults. I want to basically just help them become good people. That I think is the main goal of every teacher and coach in the end when all is said and done. Now, How do we do that as football players? Well, we're going to do it through effort, assignment, and toughness. And that's where we're going to get to as we talk about what you're going to expect from me as the Mike Climbers head football coach. Okay, so the first thing I found when I started doing some research is I have some friends who live up here, and my buddy called me. He knows that my wife and I have been looking to move up to the Pacific Northwest for the last few years. He called me and he said, Ian, man, I got this, there's this great job that's opening up. It's a really good school, it's a good area. They have a lot of potential. They had some setbacks this last year, but that's why they're looking for a coach. And one of the first things that I found was this saying that you guys have on your website, and I see it all over the place. That's grinding axe. And as I started looking at the football program and how I wanted to talk about who I am as a coach, this really resonated with me. Because when you talk about grinding an axe, you're talking about honing that axe to sharpness, making it useful as a tool, making it something that you want to take care of, something that you want to use a lot. And I think this quote kind of sums up the way that we are going to look at the football program in general. It's kind of hard to read because of the light, but it says, it's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. It says, if you give me 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'll use the first 6 to sharpen my axe. And as the head football coach of the program, that is going to be kind of like the guiding principle of the program. And that is, we're going to spend a lot of time in preparation. We're going to spend a lot of time in making sure that your son is ready to play, that your son has been trained in what he's supposed to be trained in. And then we're going to, and the way that we do that is we're going to develop our athletes in 3 main areas. And those 3 main areas are we're going to develop them academically, we're going to develop them athletically, and we're going to develop them socially. And so academically, obviously our number 1 priority with any student athlete is that we're going to develop your athlete in the classroom. We want them to be the best student in the classroom. We want them to be sitting on the front row. Grades are going to be very important. We're going to have grade checks, we're going to have study halls, we're going to do things like that. In season and out of season, we are going to make sure that we keep up with our athletes and make sure that they are striving for excellence in the classroom as well as on the football field. Athletically, we are going to train our athletes by developing those 3 areas that I mentioned before. And those areas are effort, those are assignment, and toughness. And effort, we believe that the team that plays with the greatest effort will be victorious. Therefore, we will compete at a level of effort and intensity that our opponents cannot endure. And we will have game day expectations, and one of those game day expectations is to kill the will of our opponent. So we're going to play with such a high amount of effort that our opponents are not going to want to continue to play the game. They're going to want to get on the bus and go home. That's the goal that we are looking for. To do that, we're going to provide our athletes with the tools that they need to maintain that level of intensity throughout the entire game. With the strength and conditioning program, I know Coach Monroe here does a great job with a lot of weight training in the athletic classes. We're going to make sure that those weight training classes and things like that continue to be aligned with health and safety standards, that they're given plenty of time to recover, plenty of maintenance time in the strength and conditioning aspect of it. We're going to talk to our kids about nutrition, hydration, how they can maintain their bodies at peak efficiency throughout the season. Practices are going to be fast-paced. We're going to strive to make practices more intense than our games, so that way, when the game day comes around, now we're having fun. Because we put in the work during the week, game day is the time to let loose and have fun. But we're going to be able to play with a sustained amount of effort because of how we train. We're going to teach our kids assignment, and assignment is just discipline. We're going to build discipline by setting clear expectations, holding our athletes accountable, practices, pregame stretch, execution during the game. Everything is going to have a focus on discipline and making sure that you are following through with your job and understanding what your job is. Discipline will be set by coaches, and that responsibility will be transferred to our players as they develop through our leadership and our character curriculum. Finally, athletically, we're going to develop toughness, which is just the ability to overcome and endure adversity. No football game is ever going to be perfect. There's going to be some point every Friday night that the team is going to face some form of adversity. And so we're going to challenge our kids with adversity during the week. We're going to make sure that we put kids in situations that will make them a little bit uncomfortable, that will make them have to reach down and look for that extra effort, look for that extra, just that little bit amount of toughness that makes the difference between an excellent football team and a good football team. And that's what we're going to strive to teach there. We'll do that in our workouts and our practices by making them tougher than the games. Like I said before, we will have things like what I call finishers, or we call them climber challenges, things like that at the end of practice, where you think practice is over. Well, we've got 5 more minutes. We've got an overtime period that we have to get done. It's going to be something that tests them physically, it's going to be something that tests them mentally, but it's going to prepare them for those unexpected situations during the game that always happen. And finally, we're going to develop our athletes socially. We're going to teach our athletes to be servant leaders. We're going to do that through a year-round character curriculum that I have used before to great success. In season, we're going to dedicate one afternoon before practice to character lessons and to a program that I call family groups, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And out of season, if possible, we will continue to function in that family group model, depending on how the team structures during off season. Finally, just to touch on it briefly, my philosophies as far as offense, defense, and special teams. On defense, we're going to be built to stop the run and the RPO game first. We're going to be more physical than the opponent. We are going to force the team to be one-dimensional, and we are going to headhunt and create turnovers. That is the goal of the defensive system that we will install. Offensively, we'll be based on a powerful physical running attack. Okay, that will be, we are going to be a team that's known on running the ball, but we are not going to be a team that's known by only running the ball. We will have the ability to pass and RPO as the situation is needed. So the offense will still be a relatively modern version of, it's that multiple T is the offense that we'll be looking at running here. It has some spread concepts built into it, but it is based out of a wing T attack. And finally, special teams philosophy. We're going to win the field position game, and we're going to keep our opponents on our toes, or on their toes, with timely and well-designed fakes. And so those are kind of the things you can expect from me as a head coach, and like how the program is going to be structured. As far as player health and safety goes, with player health and safety, there is nothing more important to me than the health and well-being of the players that are not here. The way that I want you guys to understand my attitude with this is that I'm going to treat your son like he's my son. I'm not going to put your son into a situation that is going to be outside the realm of safety, that is going to be outside the realm of well-being. I'm not going to put him into a situation where they can get hurt without the proper preparation. We all know football is a sport that people get injured in. It just happens. It's part of the sport. However, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We're going to make sure that your son is trained for every situation as to the best of our ability. We're going to make sure that your son knows what is expected of him in every situation. We are going to make sure that if an injury does occur, that we are working with the training staff here to make sure that that injury is taken care of, and the trainer is going to be the one that determines whether or not your son can play that week, not me. I am not a trained medical professional. If there's a trained medical professional on the coaching staff here, that's something that, obviously we would make sure that they are working with the training staff that the school district pays for. I know Coach Lacey does a really good job. I've all heard great things about him as I talked to Coach Chamberlain and to Mr. Kipper. If the player is injured, the trainer and the player's doctor will be the ones determining when and how they come back, not the coaching staff. As health and safety goes, strength training, this is just some other things that I want to just touch on. With player health and safety, we're going to make sure that your son has the ability to recover from lifts. We're not going to push them we are going to push them to lift heavy during the season, because studies show that teams that lift consistently and continue to push to improve their overall strength suffer from fewer injuries during the course of the football season, so weight training is extremely important. During that time, we are going to make sure that that is done correctly to the best of our ability, give kids the time to recover, give kids the time of maintenance they need. We are also going to make sure that we stress running form, flexibility, agility, all those things that when you develop the entire athlete, you help prevent soft tissue and joint injuries. And then finally, we're going to make sure with health and safety, with health, that your son is trained on how to keep his engine running the right way. Nutrition is extremely important for the high school athlete. There are very few high school athletes, in my experience, that understand the actual amount of calories that they need to continue to work at a peak performance level, and also the level of hydration and rest that they need. And so we're going to make sure that your son is educated in that. We're going to make sure that he understands how many calories he needs to have, what he needs after a workout to recover. We're going to, in my career, we often have provided things like peanut butter sandwiches and chocolate milk after workouts, some sort of other protein, like high protein snack. Gatorade has some good protein bars and some good recovery drinks that we've used in the past in programs that I've worked at. So there will be some form of high protein snack provided after practices and heavy lifts, things like that, to make sure that your kids are provided with what they need for their bodies to build that muscle, to recover, and to make sure that they are not suffering from fatigue injuries. Leadership and character training in my program. I referred to this earlier, which was the family groups structure that I like to use. So family groups is basically an offshoot of a leadership council. So the way that family groups work is you elect 9, 10, 11 team leaders that you then train to lead. You sit down with them, you go through leadership study, you go through character curriculum, and you teach those guys how to lead. And then once you taught them how to lead, then you let them lead. And so the family groups help build the brotherhood among the team. The leaders are going to basically draft their team. So we divide the team up evenly among the 9 leaders. And then those guys are responsible for leading those 9 guys. They talk to them about classes. They check in on them when they're not at practice. We're basically teaching them how to be a leader and to make sure that they are taking responsibility and accountability for their team. That's the idea behind the family group. We will have family groups compete against each other in things like grades. So we'll do grade checks periodically, and the team that has the best overall grades, they get something. She's like pizza party or donuts in the morning, something like that. So there's just little competitive things that we use to get them competing against each other, but in a friendly way that builds that team camaraderie. And then the family groups will also be encouraged to support other things at Shelton High, attendance and participation in other activities, sports they don't participate in. The family groups will be offered points to, like, say they don't play baseball, but they're offered points to go watch a baseball game. They're offered points to go watch a volleyball game. Okay, so things that they don't necessarily participate in themselves, they'll be encouraged to participate with their family group. I've talked about a lot of this already, so I'm just going to skip that slide. If you guys want more information on anything that I've talked tonight, I believe Coach Chamberlain passed out some QR codes that I had printed up for you guys. If you scan those QR codes, that will take you to basically the handbook that I provided to Coach Chamberlain during the interview process. It's a little bit shortened, just for brevity's sake. It was 48 pages. When I sent it to Coach Chamberlain, I cut it down to like 17, so that it wasn't quite so ridiculous. I try to include stuff that I think that you guys would be the most interested in. It has things like college recruiting stuff that we'll do. It has different aspects of the program that we're not getting to touch on just because of the structure of this tonight. So there's some really good information in there. If you have any questions about anything, that's a great resource to go back to. My email address is also on there. So if you guys have any questions about anything, you guys can email me and I'd be happy to answer those questions for you also, if you don't get a chance to talk about it tonight. The leadership curriculum that goes along with the family group this year, we did a book study over the Chalkboard Carry Water book, which is really great for teaching basic buy-in and leadership to any program. Each week what we had the leaders sit down with the coaches and they read part of the book. We talked about that part of the book, and then we would pick a leader out of the leadership group to teach a character lesson over that part of the group to the team as a whole. And so that is the way that our leadership and character curriculum would work as far as that goes. So that was the stuff that I was asked to prepare for you guys in advance. I just want to say again, thank you very much for allowing me to be here this evening. I appreciate you guys being here to listen to me. Hopefully I have provided some information that you guys were wanting to hear, and I look forward to answering the rest of your questions this evening, so thank you very much.
Questions submitted, so we're going to do a little question and answer real quick.
Okay.
All right? So the first one is, how do you handle concerns that are expressed by your student athletes or parents, and how do you work through those concerns?
So, to me, concerns have two different, when you say concerns, you have two different aspects that we're looking for. We're either talking about concerns with the coaching staff, or we have individual player concerns. And so I think we approach those things two different ways. And so, if you have a concern about coaching staff decisions or things like that, I have a legal policy as far as things like that goes. I'm always happy to have a conversation with anybody that wants to have a conversation. The only rule that I have about that is I ask that we wait until at least 24 hours after the game is over to talk about game stuff. If there's a concern, you feel free to bring it to me. That's for coaching decisions, coaching concerns, things like that. If you have a concern about your player, same 24-hour rule applies. I am willing to absolutely sit down and talk with you about what that concern is. My requirements for those concerns are that it's a conversation with you, me, and your son. I think that a lot of times when there are concerns that crop up about playing time, when there are concerns that crop up about things that are going on in practice, a lot of times it boils down to the fact that not all of the parties are on the same page with each other. Because there might have been something expressed to your son that wasn't communicated well to him, and so he's misunderstanding it, and he's communicating it to you, and that is where you basically start playing a game of telephone, and that is where you end up having a lot of misunderstandings that don't need to be had. And so, whenever you have a concern about your player, I will always schedule a meeting with you. I'm going to sit down with you and your son, and I'm going to talk about it when they get it figured out. And in the 20 years that I've been doing this, using that process, I can think of maybe one time where the situation wasn't come to some sort of amicable agreement by the end of that meeting. And so the other thing too is like I'm the first person to admit to you guys, like I'm just a human being. There are times where I will make a mistake. There are going to be times during the football game where I might decide to go for it on fourth down, and in hindsight, we probably should have punted it. And those are things that I'm willing to admit. Those are things that I'm willing to talk about. One of the things that's in that packet that I sent in was that something that we do in Texas, or in parts of Texas, is we have booster club nights on Monday nights after every week during the season. And the head coach and the coordinators sit down with whoever wants to show up to the booster club meeting on Monday night. We watch like 30 minutes of highlights and we talk about the football game. And we answer questions about stuff that you guys might have. Talk about things that went well, talk about things that didn't go well, talk about maybe what the coaching thought process was during that particular moment in the game. Because in the end, like we're all in this together. Like we all want to win. We all want Shelton to be successful. And so having that level of transparency with the coaching staff and accountability with the coaching staff is something that I personally believe is very important. And I think, again, that gives us a vehicle and that allows us to address concerns before they become issues, basically. And so those would be the ways that I would handle concerns with the team.
So what role does the football program play in the overall landscape of the high school athletic program?
Well, I think that knowing where I spent most of my career, that you guys will kind of know where I stand on this, is that the football program, I believe, is probably one of the most important aspects of any culture on a campus. When you are a member of the football team, especially in a community like Shelton, everybody knows that you are a member of the football team. And so I think that the way the football team goes is the way that the culture at your school goes, because you are generally the marquee poster for the school. And so that goes back to some of those aspects that I was talking about before, about how we're going to make sure that our football players are good in the classroom. We're going to make sure that our football players are visible in the community. There's some stuff in the packet about how we will try to get to our elementary theaters so that the kids see the football players and they start to develop relationships with the football players even when they're really little. Because the football team is basically, in a lot of ways, is the ambassadors of the community in general. And that's not to take away from any other sports, because I believe every sport has that to it. But, I mean, football is football. Like, I've been told that you guys shut the town down on Friday night so that everybody can sit in the stand and watch the football game. And so, with that, what's the saying that Ben Parker told Peter? With great power comes great responsibility. So, I think that there's a lot of responsibility with being a football player, and that needs to be communicated to the kids, and they need to be examples of that.
Great, thank you. What do you see as the purpose of the Booster Club, and how do you plan to work with it?
Without the booster club, the football team doesn't survive. It's just that simple. Without an active and without an effective booster club, playing football becomes extraordinarily difficult, because football is an expensive sport. Helmets cost $400 a pop. Shoulder pads cost $300 a pop. Like jerseys, if you try to buy one jersey to replace a jersey that got torn up, you're talking another $250. Like, those things add up extraordinarily fast. And without an effective booster club, you cannot operate an effective football program. You just can't. And so, as the head coach, it's my responsibility to help the booster club be as effective as it can be. I have to come with ideas. If there's like, I know that you guys have done a golf tournament in the past. I've done lots of golf tournaments with the booster club that I work with in Texas. So those are things that I have experience with. I was talking with Coach Chamberlain earlier today about, I know of a program that allows, there's a company that it's called One Vision. They make deals with school districts where they come in and they build a video scoreboard with advertising space on it. And they do that for nothing, with the stipulation that for the first couple of years, you sell advertisements for that board, they get a cut of that advertisement until the board's paid off, and then it's the school districts to own and do whatever they want to with. And so those are the types of things that I think as the head football coach is the way that I have to work with the Booster Club. Like, I've got to be supportive of the Booster Club, I've got to make sure that the Booster Club is effective, and I can't just be the guy with all the problems all the time and no solutions. Like, I have to have the ability to suggest things that we can do, to help organize things that we can do, things like that, and those are things that I have done throughout my career, and it's something that I'm actually pretty good at, so.
What are your off-season expectations for members of the football program?
Okay, so this one is a little bit different because in Texas we have athletic periods. And so we have a true off season in Texas with the football players that aren't in other sports. Going into this, I know that there are different rules between the way off season can work in Washington compared to what I'm used to in Texas. But to make a long story short is I'm going to expect the kids to still be connected to the football program in some way. Now that's going to be non-athletically for the most part. We talked about grade checks with the family groups. We talked about maintaining the family groups through the off season. And kids are going to be encouraged to play other sports. Like I want linemen and linebackers and running backs and I want them to wrestle. I'm a wrestling coach. I know how good it is for football players to wrestle. I want skill kids, wide receivers, running backs, linebackers to go out in the spring, and I want them to run track. Like, those are things that I want them to do if they're not already doing another sport. If your son is already playing baseball, I was head baseball coach for 8 years. Like, I love baseball. It's one of my favorite sports. But if they're not doing something else, they're going to be encouraged to play other sports. But they're also going to be encouraged to be attached to the football program still in some way. Whether it's through character, whether it's through before, after school weights that work out around other sports schedules, things like that. Whatever we are allowed to do within the framework of the rules for Washington, we will have something going on for football throughout the year, just so that we can stay connected and stay part of that group.
So what steps do you plan to take to rebuild trust among families, athletes, coaches in the community? How do you plan to help the program heal and move forward?
I think I've talked about that a little bit already. My biggest thing with all of this is transparency and accountability. Parents need to feel like they can come and talk to me if they have an issue. Kids need to feel like they can come and talk to me if they have an issue. I need to be transparent and accountable with the program in general, so that, because like I said, I'm going to make mistakes, and if I'm not accountable for those, then everything that I'm trying to teach your sons about responsibility and accountability is just wind whistling through the tunnel. Doesn't mean anything. And so that trust is one of those really important things. It takes a long time to build, and it takes a second for it to be gone. And it's just a constant battle. And I think the only way that you can approach those processes is just one step at a time. Just letting the community know that I'm going to be here, and that I want Shelton to be successful, and that I'm never going to put your son in a position where they don't feel safe. They might be uncomfortable sometimes, because I'm going to ask them to dig deep, and I'm going to ask them to do something that they might not want to do, but they will always be safe, because that's what I would want for my son. And so I think that's all you can do is just prove that every day, prove that attitude every day, and in the end, you'll have that trust and accountability back.
Great. If you were offered and accepted the position, what are the first 3 things you do?
First one, figure out the the fastest way to move up here. Because I don't think it's gonna be really hard to do anything with the football program from 3,200 miles away. Second thing is make sure that the staff is filled out, make sure that we have the guys in place so that we can hit the ground running over the summertime. The summertime is going to be extremely important going into next season with summer football and strength and conditioning and things like that, because whoever comes in, there's going to be new stuff that's being taught. And so the summer is extremely important, and in order for the summer to be successful, the coaches have to be there and the coaches have to be taught what we're doing before we roll into that first day of summer practice. It can't be just me and 2 other guys that know what's going on. Everybody needs to be on the same page. So first thing is get up here as quick as I can, get my family up here as quick as I can. Second thing is get that coaching staff filled out. And the third thing is get that coaching staff taught so we can hit the ground running in the summertime. And that includes, and by hitting the ground running, I mean, we got to get parent communication figured out. We've got to get all that stuff figured out so that we can be effective when we start this summer.
Okay, last question. What would Shelton High School and the larger Shelton community be missing out on if you were not hired?
Basically, biggest thing is my experience. I have a lot of experience in a lot of different programs, in a lot of different methods of doing things. This has been my profession for 20 years. Like I have done things over the last 20 years in my career to make sure that I am the most effective football coach that I can be at this point in time in my career. And I have experience, I have passion, and biggest thing is I have loyalty. I have spent the last 11 years at a school because I have loyalty for that school. And it was only a special opportunity that would take me away from there. And that was something that I felt like this place is a special opportunity. I think there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of tradition, which is very important to me also. And those are things that we can get back to. And I think that you will get that if you don't have me in some ways, but if I'm not here, you will lose out on my experience and the things that I can bring that are a slightly different perspective from what is normal for up here. Because my career has been spent in arguably the greatest football state overall as far as high school football and things like that.
Great, thank you very much, Coach. We appreciate you coming. Let's give Coach a round of applause.